Okay. Thank you, Mansi.
Maybe I can yell. Do I need this? It's showing up on there, right? So yeah. It's well understood that, especially in South India, there's a lot of really smart people that bring value to my ecosystem. So I thought it was so logical for me to come here to Hyderabad and explore this ecosystem and understand how I can build bridges and help entrepreneurs thrive at the source. So me to connect with folks who can shed some light on the value that we can create together. Was invented across the hall from me my freshman year at Northeastern University. And there's been some movies actually made about that. So I've seen this firsthand that a smart person without any experience at all can achieve great things by surrounding themselves with the right people. So it's about vision. It's about understanding your goals and your objectives and understanding what it is that we want to achieve together. And our togetherness of our being is something that I think brings our economies together. It's not about the Indian ecosystem or the American ecosystem, it's about collaboration. Rising tides lifts all boats, and we're starting to understand with macroeconomic factors and microeconomic factors that we have more opportunities than ever, actually, to achieve these means and to achieve this vision. So the first question I really have, and do you want to give a little introduction as well?
Sure. So thank you, Professor Schultz. Greetings, all of you. As was introduced, I work for the government here. My name is Jayesh Ranjan, and for over a decade now, last 12 years to be precise, I have been very closely involved in putting together the innovation ecosystem here in Hyderabad. This is conventionally not the way it is done. If you look at the global narratives, maybe if you study the other innovation hotspots across the world like Silicon Valley, Boston or Oxford, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Singapore, Hong Kong, I mean some of these are obviously known to everyone. You would have found that government has played very, very limited role. And even in the Indian context, Bangalore, as we all know, is a very important innovation hotspot. There also, government has actually played no role. So this is the popular narrative that governments have nothing to do with innovation. It is all talent driven, market driven, and government can at the most be a late entrant and provide some facilities and support. In 2014, when we began the entrepreneurial journey of Hyderabad as a city, we decided to change the narrative. We felt that the government, of course, should not get into micromanagement, over-regulation, which is not its business. But it can, for sure, create an enabling environment, bring all the stakeholders together, also provide some very critical infrastructure, possibly very expensive infrastructure, but critical infrastructure can be funded by the government. And 12 years later, from 2014 to now, 11 and a half years later, the results that we have achieved, the successes that we can feel very proud about are incredible. And therefore, in a way, we are the authors of this counter narrative or the parallel narrative that governments also can play a very vital role in shaping the innovation ecosystem.
I think you're absolutely right. In my state, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, we developed this playbook, even going back to the 1980s, where we recognized that we had some of the best schools and that it was the government's role to orchestrate and to align incentives. And I talk about the pillars of the innovation ecosystem being academia, industry, government, and then also something that's not very well understood is philanthropy, right? And so we all share in the human condition, and we're all suffering for, in my industry, I work in biotech, where Boston is well recognized as #1 in the world. And the government played a key role in this because they recognized the role that they play in economic development. So, so this is something that I'm looking forward to seeing blossom even more. I'm already seeing it happen. I'm already seeing the impact of your policies, and I'm very, very, very impressed. So I guess, Mr. Jayesh, I guess the first question I have is, who had this vision starting out, and not just talking about young entrepreneurs, but talking about the role of innovation in the economy?
So it's a very valid point. So when you mentioned that in Boston, the Mass government decided to step in because they realized the possibility of economic growth, etc. So in Hyderabad, in Telangana, this province you would have figured out by now is called Telangana. So the circumstances were slightly different. Of course, no one denies that entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, create jobs, add to the economic growth, bring that dynamism to the economy. But when our journey began, it began with a different purpose altogether. So I'll take a couple of minutes to give you the backstory. Obviously, you won't know at all, and possibly some of the members in the audience also may not know. But this is a new province in India. This is actually the newest province. It was created in 2014. But the demand to have a new province was going on for decades altogether. And for some reason or the other, it was getting delayed. Eventually, it materialized in 2014. So before 2014, what used to happen? So this province was part of a different province. It was part of a bigger province from which this province has been carved out. But one of the reasons why there was a demand that we should have a separate province was that in the time of the combined province, the bigger province, people who lived in this part, they used to feel deprived. They felt that all the opportunities are getting knocked away by people from that province. Nothing is happening in this province. I mean, this was not a province at that time. Nothing was happening in this area, so to say. And there was this sense of dissatisfaction, discrimination, and all that. So eventually, when things changed in 2014, when this province became an independent province, one of the first things which the leadership did was actually to conduct a visioning exercise, which is called Envision Telangana. And all the domain experts and academic faculty and some other kind of thought leaders who were there in the room, the only question which was asked to them was that we have missed out on almost 6 decades of development. Nothing has come our way. Everything has got knocked off on the other side. Now that we have control over our own destiny, what is the key advice do you give? How do you... So, as you know, if you need to catch up with something or if you need to do something very fast, one expression that you typically use is, how do you fast forward? How do you kind of do things very fast? Sometimes if there is a even bigger sense of urgency, you use another expression, how do you leapfrog? I mean, it's not just fast forwarding, I'm leapfrogging.
Yep.
But I remember the leadership which was there on that day in that conference. They used a third expression, which is so evocative. The expression which they used was, how do you pole vault? So how do you jump maybe 20 times your height in a sudden burst? So of course the experts understood what our sentiment was. So the advice which everyone gave, I mean there would be 20, 30 people in that room. Everyone told us that technology will be your biggest kind of an enabler.
Yep.
You must rely on technology to move forward in education, in health, in social development, in urban planning, in agriculture. But then they told the second thing also, that if you look around, who is bringing new generation technologies? Of course, the large tech companies and academic institutions, they are doing what they are expected to do. But if you see the global experiences, most of the new generation technology, the new age technologies, is coming from young innovators, young entrepreneurs, whom we call startups. So this was the clear message, that you have to rely on technology, but you also have to convert your state into a very welcoming state for startups, young entrepreneurs, and thereafter our journey began. And what I mentioned earlier, that as a change, we decided that we will directly intervene instead of waiting for the market and some private enterprises to create that innovation ecosystem. So that is how it began, that we wanted solutions to our problems, and we felt that these are the people who are solving the problems far better than anyone else.
I think it deserves to be mentioned that this generation of entrepreneurs, we remember a time before the internet, right? We remember a time when we weren't digital natives. We had to adapt to the world in which we live. So the comfort in which young entrepreneurs now live, with artificial intelligence at their fingertips and, social networking and so forth, these are inherent, these are innate in young entrepreneurs today, and it's maybe something that the older generation might not take for granted because we see it. We remember a time before we had these enabling technologies. But you're right. I think it's well understood that in Hyderabad, especially in the students that I have in Boston, they are a cut above the rest. They have an aptitude and a prowess when it comes to technology that is really a competitive advantage. Not just the resilience of being Indian, but also it must be the education system here that prepares them for success, right? But understanding the role of entrepreneurship, I think most students today, they don't aspire to work for other people's companies, right? They want to develop something of their own. They are driven by a mission that they can have a sense of purpose and a sense of pride and a sense of impact in the world we live. So entrepreneurs are in effect activists. We care about changing the status quo, understanding that the world isn't going to change on its own. But it's not easy, especially when you're young and you don't have experience and you're still at some point in training. There's a lot of obstacles that will prevent or impede the success of entrepreneurs. So my next question is, what do you see as being some of the biggest barriers that young entrepreneurs face, in actually advancing in their careers and advancing their businesses, and what can institutions and the government do to help them?
Sure. So, so a couple of things. The first point which I'll mention may not kind of be seen as a very obvious answer, but I have discovered it over my engagement with the system over the last 12 years or so. So if you will recall, many of you will recall, that the first wave of startups which began in India in late 1990s, early 2000s, even later actually, not even early 90s, not even late 1990s, late 2000s, early 2010s, etc. And we know all these companies. I don't need to name anyone, and I don't mean to kind of run them down. But if you look at who they are, what did they chose to do, it can be very easily noticed that they were all copying an successful and established model. So it's a Me Too kind of thing. Like, I run hotels there, I'll do something similar. I run a transport, I'm a transport aggregator in the US, I'll be the transport aggregator in India. I have online stores in the US, I'll create online stores in India. So of course, the size and scale of the Indian market, and if you are able to tweak it, it's not that everything which happens or works well in the US can be exactly translocated in India. You need to understand the Indian nuances, Indian reality, and given the scale, all these fellows became very, very successful. In fact, I'm sure everyone understands who they are. They are the poster boys of the Indian economy today. But that in a way also brought in a sense of laziness, that I don't need to do some original kind of research, discovery.
Interesting.
I don't need to do a bottoms up kind of a preparatory exercise. let me find what has worked well in the US or elsewhere, and let me try to thrust it down your throat, whether it is needed or not. So that is mentality number one. The second thing which I have also noticed is I also have spent a year studying in one of the colleges, one of the institutions rather, in the Mass, in the Boston ecosystem. I went to the Kennedy School, by the way, and spent 1 year here. But I took courses at the MIT, at the business school, and all. So I see the dynamism there. I also took a couple of courses on entrepreneurship as well. So one thing which distinguishes, and of course this is now quite evident in India as well, because things have changed quite a lot from early 2010s to 15 years, 18 years down the line. Things have changed quite a lot, and Indian success stories also you can very easily make out are of people who have the mindset of being very agile, literally scanning the circumstances, the horizon, literally every day, and understanding whether the fit which their line of activity has is working well. Do they need to change something? Do they need to? So this is something which is slowly coming in our DNA. It is not there. Conventionally, people of Indian origin are status quoist. They like to maintain things as they are. The world of entrepreneurship, on the contrary, is full of dynamism. There is a change happening literally every day or every quarter or every month. So how do you bring that kind of an agility? And there is one more thing. So I'm glad that you appreciate the talent Indian origin technologists and entrepreneurs in the US bring. But the original schooling experience or Indian experience is not that great. I mean, I have been to one of the best business schools, and one of the reasons I did not pursue a career in the corporate world was that my experience. See, many people in the US, when they complete their studies and all, the kind of expression they have is that it had been a mind-blowing experience. My experience was that it was a mind-numbing experience. So frankly, I didn't get anything from my college. I went to one of the best business schools, but that was the time when I chose to get into the public services and all that. Of course, the college helped me because some of the courses which I did there helped me clear my exams and all that. So to that extent, I'm grateful for my institute, but it did not teach me any great skills which would have helped me do well as a corporate leader or as an entrepreneur. Of course, things have changed quite a lot. So I'm talking 3 decades ago. So these are some of the things that the initial phase of your education, your schooling is very uninspiring. Very few schools encourage original thinking, problem solving. Again, this is changing. I recall times of my own when I went to school and college. There were clearly no institutions, no one like the Bauer School of Entrepreneurship, where at a young age you start teaching children, you sow the seeds of entrepreneurship there. So these are some of the difficulties which they face, that very little of original thinking, very little of research, very little of problem solving, the dynamism which the entrepreneurial world actually pushes at you, inability to really keep up with it. Right. So some of these are challenges which can be overcome if we catch them young, if we start teaching them from an early stage, give them experiential kind of teaching. As you know, entrepreneurship, innovation can't be taught using a chalk and talk method. You have to give experience, practice, sure, exercise. So that is something which we need to do more than what has been done so far.
Absolutely, and I don't think this is something unique to India. Even in the United States, I'm fortunate to be from one of the more innovative states. But I can't even say that everybody within the Boston area is entrepreneurial in their thinking. It's something that maybe we take for granted because we do have opportunities available to us, and we do have government programs that encourage innovation. And more, the government is playing a role through the school system itself to develop curriculum and to develop pedagogy that supports the entrepreneurial mindset, right? So you hit on this before, this mindset, and I think when you are in a traditional schooling, oftentimes we have to go back and we have to relearn some of the principles through the lens of entrepreneurship so that we can actually get the full value out of the lesson, right? So in many ways, we have to unlearn many of the things that we learned and go relearn it again. But how is the Telangana, in terms of state governments? What are some of the programs that you have in order to get them young before they develop the bad habits that might encourage people to want to go work for somebody else? What can we do now in order to encourage that kind of mindset?
Yeah, thanks, Professor Schultz. So happy to share with you that we have started three very important initiatives. They still need to be scaled, but the initial results are very, very encouraging. So we are very enthused and we want to do more of it. So the first is we have started this for school children itself. This is called the School Innovation Challenge. And I should educate you a little bit. So in India, unlike the US, there are more number of public schools and few number of private schools. But the difference is that, and this is the difference between the US and here, that typically the better off people send their children to private schools, and only people who are at the, let us say, bottom of the pyramid or a level above that, they send their children to government schools. And many of the parents themselves have very little educational experiences by themselves. So they don't support the child too much in doing their home assignments and all that, because they are also not schooled to a very great extent. So these children who go to government schools and don't have a supporting home environment eventually complete their education, but they don't advance too much in their careers. They do middling kind of jobs. And these public schools obviously are funded by the government. So we are very keen that the outcome should also be great. I'm not preparing thousands of children just to end up doing some average kind of thing. Again, I do not want to demean any profession. Every job has its value. So when I say these are only English expressions that these are average jobs, it doesn't mean, for example, let us say the person who opened the door for us outside, I don't demean his job. He's also doing something very valuable. But potential possibly was much more. He could have done something which is far more important, far more significant for the country as a whole, or society as a whole. So what we are doing is that we are starting when they come to grade 7th, etc., School Innovation Challenge. And in all the public schools, which are called government schools in India, in Telangana, we train the faculty on how do you create problem statements, how do you create teams amongst students, how do you guide the students in figuring out a problem, figuring out a solution, how do you create a prototype of your solution, how do you demonstrate it. So UNICEF supports us. This is done in partnership with UNICEF. And this is a competition. So at the district level, some student teams are selected. They present at the state level, then some people are winners, and then we track them for some period of time. Obviously, they are school children, so they can't get into a professional setup immediately, but we ensure that the interest in whatever they developed for this challenge, that remains active, and possibly something more is also added to that. So this is one initiative of the state. There is a national initiative also, which is run in all the 28 states in the country. This is called Atal Tinkering Labs. So Atal is the name of one of the former prime ministers of the country. In his name, the national government has set up prototyping labs in different schools. I don't recall the precise number, but these are thousands of schools. In our province also, easily a few hundred schools would have been covered. So they send prototyping kits, and children are encouraged to tinker, experiment, prototype. I don't know, you mentioned that you went to T-Hub.
Yep.
Next to T-Hub is a prototyping facility called T-Works.
T-Works, yeah.
Did you go there?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so of course T-Works is gigantic. The tinkering labs are miniature versions of T-Works. So that is the second thing which we are doing. The third thing is being done for college students. And again, I want to share something interesting. See, there are different kinds of colleges in India. Some of them are very kind of elitist, and they're really at the frontier. The best tech schools in the country are called Indian Institute of Technologies. So most of the tech leaders of Indian origin that you see in the Silicon Valley, Boston, etc., most of them have this IIT background. The
Right.
best business schools are called IIMs, Indian Schools of Management. I went to one of them, as I said. And many of our alumni also are in leading kind of corporate roles. But there are also smaller second level, third level, fourth level colleges. Some of them are very remote, rural. They fail to attract high quality faculty, but still students from that catchment go there. And again, I'm very, very sure that they end up with a mind numbing kind of an experience. Nothing comes out of those 4 years that they spent there. So we have started targeting those kind of colleges. And if it is an engineering college, which gives you a technology degree, a undergrad degree in technology. So as a part of their curriculum, they are expected to do a college project, a technology project, typically in their third year. And in many of these rural and remote colleges, it is just done as a formality. You are expected to submit a report, you will get some grades, it has to show up on your grade sheet. So you just write something, put something across the table. The faculty also doesn't expect any grade quality. They just give you some 40% grade out of 100 and everyone completes it. So we have changed that. We are working with about 100 odd colleges, and we tell these students that this college project that you do, apart from demonstrating the usage of technology, because you're a technology student, you have to show the usage of application of some technology, convert it into a business plan, go slightly beyond. And we train the faculty of these colleges using a premier business school in Hyderabad, which is called the Indian School of Business, ISB. You can't see it from here, but it's one of the best business schools in the country today, amongst the top, I would say, 50 in the world. So their faculty train the faculty of these smaller colleges in how to motivate the students in developing not just to motivate, but how to guide the students in creating a business plan of their proposal.
Sure.
And many of them, so this is called the TEP program, Technology Entrepreneurship Program. And so far about, I would imagine more than 1,000 students would have gone through this path. And on the day of their graduation, some of them present, I mean, most of them come and present also. And I've attended some of these graduation ceremonies of this program. Some of them are very, very impressive. You can't imagine that from such a rural and remote and a challenged kind of a location, such great ideas are coming. So these are very important initiatives to tackle school children, college children, and as you said, sow seeds of entrepreneurship from a very, very early stage.
Yeah, I truly believe that greatness can come from anywhere. And we shouldn't be going, if you want new results, you have to put in different inputs. And we have to do things that are different. Clearly, you're embracing that mindset. And also, you mentioned the IITs, which I'm very familiar with, because at Northeastern University, I teach in the College of Science. I teach biotechnology enterprise. Every single one of my students has gone to the IITs. So they are strong. They have such technical aptitude. But no one's really ever taught them about the context before, about the business opportunities, about what they can do to build and to create value. After all, in biotechnology, we share in the same human health conditions that we all do all over the world. And I had started to wonder, wait a minute, are we steering these students to come to my country? Is that something that we should be doing, or should we encourage these students to stay in India and to innovate here? So around that, of course, the problems are global in scope, but there's a local market opportunity as well. So do you think that these young founders should be focusing on the Indian market first, or do you think that we should be steering them to come to the United States and other markets?
By the way, your coffee is getting cold.
Thank you.
So, Professor Schultz, I have heard this kind of a question before as well. And many experts mention this with lots of conviction, that if you are able to solve the problems of India, you can solve the problems of the entire world. In fact, I'll tell you an interesting story. As I told you, I was studying at the Kennedy School. So at Harvard, most of the teaching is done through case studies. So one of the case studies which we were reading in the class was on the Arvind Eye Hospital. So I was very surprised. You may not know this. There's a eye hospital in Coimbatore, I think, further south of Hyderabad, but in a different province. So there's a case study. So I'm from India, so I understand these things better. So I was able to answer most of the questions of that case study and all. But then I asked the professor, what prompted you to put this Indian case study in this book, in our curriculum? So he mentioned something very personal. He told that he had developed some eye ailment. So so in Boston there's a huge hospital, possibly the biggest on the East Coast. It is called Mass General. Mm-hmm. So he went to a doctor in Mass General. So he was a young doctor, and the doctor checked him. Then he chatted with the doctor, and the doctor just told him that he has come back from India having spent 3 months in this Arvind Eye Hospital. So this professor was very surprised that what can you learn in India? I mean, you are in the US, you are in Boston, you are in Mass, you are in the middle of the center of the life sciences universe. Why do you need to go to India to learn anything? What is it that Harvard or MIT or someone else can't teach you? And the doctor gave him a very interesting thing, that what I learned in 3 months in India, even 30 years of spending time in US, I won't be able to learn. The kind of variety, the kind of scale, the kind of complexities that I get here. And later on I realized that this is true for everything. Let us say you want to solve the problems of education. You have a variety of use case scenarios in India. You want to solve the challenges of agriculture production, productivity. I mean, the variety of crops, the levels, the heterogeneity in the nature of farmers. See, we use the terms farmers as if it's a homogeneous community, but there are so many complexities. There are big farmers, there are small farmers, there are the smallest of the small farmers, and each of them face their own unique problems, etc. And so therefore it's very correct that if you're able to tackle problems in India, you can succeed anywhere in the world. So I notice this now that many startups from across the world also are realizing this. And since you went to T-Hub, you might have been told that there's a program in T-Hub called the T-Bridge, yes, which encourages those startups. The India landing is done through T-Hub because, see, it is also a truth, and I should be candid to admit it. Many people appreciate the fact that India offers so much of opportunities, etc., but they also realize that India is a difficult place to do business. You will get caught in the quagmire of all these approvals, permissions, the proverbial red tape and all those things. So in T-Hub, we have created those systems and processes that anyone from anywhere can have a very smooth Indian landing. So my advice to all your students would be that let them finish their masters at Northeast, but then, I mean, they can remain located wherever they want to. Right. But of course, now that President Trump has become a bit aggressive, whether they remain located there or not is also a matter of it's a matter of concern. But best that they start their journey here, perfect their product or their solution, and then give it a go anywhere in the world.
I agree. And I should mention a couple personal things. First, my wife is Indian, and I only met her because she did her residency at Massachusetts General Hospital. And probably my first introduction to my local life science ecosystem when I started to understand how important we were was when my pediatrician, who was also Indian when I was a child, recommended after I had been...
My pediatrician is also Indian.
We share in this. He started to recognize that I had a lack of vision in my right eye. I'm actually legally blind in my right eye. And he recommended that I go see one of the world's foremost experts, who fortunately was about an hour to the north of where I lived at the Massachusetts Eye and Ear Infirmary, which is the eye hospital associated with Mass General Hospital. So I'm actually, I didn't realize this was an area of skill and and domain expertise here in India, but now I'm all of a sudden very personally interested in seeing what they can do for me personally, right? So thank you for sharing that, because now I have another incentive for coming to India on a personal level. I also want to say that entrepreneurship is not easy, and you're going to fail before you succeed. And many of the programs, for example, at the Bower School, encourage us to fail fast and to embrace failure. After all, failure is the tuition that we pay for success. However, you don't often hear about the failures of successful entrepreneurs. It's like everything they touch turned to gold for the first time, and we know that's not true, right? So we need to develop a culture of failure, which sounds kind of crazy on the surface, but when you understand the process that it takes to bring a product to market, then you understand how to fail fast over and over again, iterate in order to bring a product to market and to eventually succeed, right? So how can you build this culture where young entrepreneurs are encouraged to experiment and not fear failure?
So, again, Professor Schultz, there is a big cultural difference on this aspect as well. In India, also we fail. So, I'll give you a cricket example. Possibly your wife might have told you a little bit about cricket or even taught you about cricket. Something very important happened 3 days ago. One of the very important cricket players announced his retirement. And if you read about...
Rohit, right?
No,
Rohit?
not Rohin. His name is Kohli.
Oh,
Virat.
okay.
Virat. Rohin also retired, incidentally. Yeah. Good that you know about these players. Not Rohin. His name is Rohit. But I'm talking about Virat. Of course, to some extent it applies for Rohin as well. So both of them announced their retirements, and if you see the comments and media about the retirement, it appears as if something very catastrophic has happened. But if you see, for example, Virat's last test series, I followed that test series closely. It was played in Australia. He was getting out, I don't know if any of you follow cricket or not, or if you recall. He was getting out as if he has just learnt playing cricket.
Wow.
His levels were so low. No. Since you don't follow cricket, he was edging to balls which I also played some kind of cricket in my youth. So when you start coaching, the coach gives some of the first tips that you get is how do you judge which ball to hit, which ball to leave. This is the first fundamental stuff which is taught. And once you overcome that, is edging the ball to the slips. Don't happen. I mean, you perfect that. This man, 6 times he got out, edging the ball into the slips. I mean, the Australian bowlers, there are 3 quick bowlers, they made him their bunny. When you are at such depth of form, and if you say that, fine, I'm retiring, people should feel, I mean, of course, you have a big body of accomplishment. I'm not, again, undermining Virat Kohli. He would still be considered, whatever happened in the last 6 innings of his, he would still be considered a great player, a legend and all that. But no one should say that this is the wrong timing, you should not have retired, you should have gone to England, you should have been the captain for the English, I mean for the series and all that. I don't agree. And one of the reasons is that failure is not accepted at all. So the whole reason for telling this long and complicated story is that culturally, it's very visible that I'm failing. You would have heard about thespians who are past their prime. There's an Indian actor, of course he's no more there, an actor called Dev Anand, I'm sure. I mean, some of you are too young to know who Dev Anand is, but in his era he was a legend. But he didn't realize that there is a sell by date. He has passed the date. His last 15 movies are successive flops. His 15th movie did not run for even 1 day. But even then he did not feel that I have to change my narrative, something else has to be done. So I completely agree that in the world of entrepreneurship, you need to fail, you need to use that to understand what went wrong. But this is not happening. People are failing, but they are not admitting that they are failing. They are not realizing that these are the 5 takeaways, these are the 5 learning lessons which I should get. And therefore, the system of coaching, mentoring, guiding becomes very, very important. Since I am blind to my failures, I'm a Virat Kohli, I'm a Dev Anand, I'm still hoping that I'll be the captain for the England series. I'm still hoping that these flops are not due to me. This is for some other reason. Someone else should take the responsibility to tell me that you still need to learn the basics. You are edging balls which you should have left. Or you can play a square cut like Virendra Sehwag used to do. So that is how it is.
I have much to learn about cricket. I'm more knowledgeable about the cousin of cricket, American baseball, which I don't think is as exciting to watch as cricket, but I digress. Thinking about collaborations, you hit on this because of your support for various programs like T-Hub and T-Works and such, but what kind of collaborations do you see, between educational institutions and the government that are going to catalyze, the ecosystem here?
So in Telangana, we have tried to create a pathway. See, I strongly believe that every college should have a strong innovation program. There should be an innovation center. There should be an innovation hub. I'll again tell it's a small digression, but an interesting digression to again show the mindset of colleges. For some years, for about 1 year, 8 months, I was the officiating vice chancellor of a technology college, university here. It's not a college, university. It's called the Jawaharlal Nehru Technology University, JNTU. And about 200 colleges are affiliated. So this is a degree granting university.
I see.
I was the vice chancellor. And colleges would call me, some sports day, annual day, science day. Frequently they would invite me and I would go occasionally. And when I would go to some college, they would ask me they would take me around, they'll show me, this is our classroom, this is that. And I would also pass by a room on which there will be a board, entrepreneurship cell, e-cell. And I would notice that the door is closed. So it happened once, it happened twice, it happened 5 times, 10 times. Then I started realizing that every college that I'm being taken to, there is a room which says entrepreneurship cell, but the door is always closed. No one is taking me inside to show what's happening there. Then I asked my registrar, what is it that these entrepreneurship cells are everywhere, but nothing seems to be happening. So he told me that there is a national government scheme. If you have an entrepreneurship cell in your college, they give you some grants every year. I don't recall what grants. And just to get those grants, I've created a cell, but nothing happens inside. So it's all the facade, it's all a fiction. Then I told that, no, let us change this. Let us make things happen. Let us create a central hub in our own university and connect all these entrepreneurship skills as spokes. So conceptually, it's a good idea that I'll take control of all the entrepreneurship cells. Then we wrote to all these colleges that send a faculty member who will be the coordinator so that we work with him, we train him. So some 30, 40 faculty members came in the first instance. And I had identified one very strong woman faculty to be the coordinator from the hub side. And one day she told me that these people who have come, they're totally disinterested, nothing is happening, what to do. Then I asked her to find out why is it happening. And then she reported something again very intriguing. She told me that when we wrote to the college principals that send a faculty, so they typically identified that person whom they wanted to get rid of. This person, if he remains in the college, he will disturb, he will agitate, he will make some demands, just push him there. So he was not the best person. See, if you have to guide students about the world of entrepreneurship, there has to be certain inclination in you also. You must have that passion, that commitment. And obviously, teaching entrepreneurship is very, very different. So the persons who were being nominated were of a completely different kind. They had no interest in entrepreneurship, innovation. Totally. Their principals wanted to get rid of them, therefore they landed up there. So then we changed the criteria. We told the principals that we will interview who is the best person. We'll find out from the students which faculty they really feel impressed with, who can motivate them the most, who can give them real life examples of entrepreneurship and all that. So things have changed now. So we want that to happen in a much more robust way. Students who do well there, who really show strong sparks of entrepreneurship, T-Hub should take them over. We have other institutions also. If they're into hardware, T-Work should adopt them. So a pathway for them has to be created. And then the pipeline will be kind of strong, and we can expect quite a lot from them.
I think you hit on something that is important for us to understand, the existential crisis that is facing academia right now. In that, in many ways, it's like the blind leading the blind, with tenured track faculty that are leading students. And the students are aspirational and ambitious to start companies, and the faculty are not. They have cushy jobs with tenure and sabbaticals, and they make a good income. They're not about to step away from, a top-paying job where they get the kind of respect that they have. So, but the students can tell. The students know who to trust. And I think this is putting pressure on academia to change, to innovate from within. And this is another reason why the Bower School exists, is because we are disrupting the status quo, right? Absolutely. So thinking about your dorm experience when you were in college, you lived in a dorm, right? Were you thinking about starting a company when you were in your dorm? And some of the best companies were started at that stage. What makes these kind of college campuses a powerful place to start a company?
So the peer group definitely is very motivating. You have people who are all achievers, who have all come through. So in India, most of these college admissions happen through a very competitive exam. Unlike the US, where whatever is your SAT scores and your SOPs and all that, students are selected. Here you have to actually sit through an entrance test. The IITs have their own entrance exam, which is called the JEE. The business schools have their own entrance exams, which is called CAT, CAT, and civil services also I have to clear an exam. So given the scale and size of the country, millions of people write that exam. So if you have come through, obviously you are the best of the best. So you are in a very motivating environment, and people come with lots of seriousness of purpose. So other colleges, I shared a little bit about colleges which are remote and rural, and faculty is also nothing very inspiring. The students also realize this, that this is just a formality. You have to just go through the process, and at the end some degree will come in my hand. No one expects anything. But in these IITs and IIMs, the seriousness is at a very, very different level altogether. People are, not only are they reading their courses seriously, they also have varied interests outside the academic world. They are pursuing their ideas.
Extracurricular activities.
Yes, precisely. So the environment is very, very motivating. So that is what I would say.
Wonderful. I think this brings our discussion to an end, and I just want to thank you again, Mr. Jayesh, for joining us today. I really appreciate your insights, and I know I learned something. I hope everyone else did too. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Professor Schultz.
Thank you.
Nice talking to you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. But he's our guest.
No, you're my guest. Yeah, here you go. Thank you very much.
He wants to take some pictures. Did you take pictures when we were talking? Yes. Please share a few. Definitely. Post something. Posting this may not look good, but posting something, because typically when you go to events, they give you small gifts. But this is way beyond that. This can't be called small.
Well, they do a good job here.
So, my colleague, the life sciences colleague, will get in touch.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
I wanted him to see you on Friday.
I'm looking forward to it.
His name is Shakti.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to it.
Have a great stay here.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye, everyone.